So here we are at the Mahasiddha Yoga Center in Costa Rica with another installment of Yogi to Yogi, Hard Advice on the Path. I like this kind of format for us to be able to really ask the questions that matter for us in our practice so we can go deeper. It's really great. If I had somebody who was on tap like this when I was practicing, it would have been great. You know, I got to see my gurus maybe 2 or 3 times a year, maybe senior students once or twice a year. So I hope that this can really serve everybody here to go deeper, ask the questions that they really need, good practical questions that you really need to take your practice to a deeper level. Even if it's a view question that's affecting your white bindu, your orientation towards life and towards practice that is inhibiting your practice possibly, that's all fair game. For those of you who are new to the group, we've had a lot of people become members since the last time we did this Yogi to Yogi last month. So let me welcome all the new people and explain for new and old a brief bit about what Mahasiddha Yoga is before we get launched into the questions. Mahasiddha Yoga is the path of the Mahasiddhas, who are the great adepts of the tantric paths of Buddhism, of Hinduism, of Taoism, etc., Dzogchen. These great masters followed the path of direct realization. So in any Dharma tradition from the East, you have basically 3 ways of practicing. You have avoidance or rules, where you realize that you're in a state of suffering. You realize that you're sort of out of control. So you take vows, sometimes called the path of the vow. You take vows about conduct, and you avoid the karmic environments and karmic activities which cause you negative karma, limiting karma. This is called the path of avoidance from the Mahasiddha Yoga viewpoint. This is what monks and nuns do. But lay people can take it as well. Then there's the second path, right? You have these 3, there's the second path. The second path is the path of transformation or inner alchemy. And this is where we see classically the more subtle practices that involve not just controlling you with behavioral modifications, but performing esoteric practices that are meant to affect your brain function, affect your mind consciousness, affect your energy, affect your body in a more subtle way, a more basic way, a more causal way, getting deeper than just working with the outer effects, the outer manifestations of behavior. In this way, we're working with our mind through meditation, inner visualizations, mantras. It could be esoteric movement practices of yoga, etc., but they are geared towards a change inside in the channel system, chakra system, bindu system, character of the human being, actually, overall. It's rare that behavior modification or the path of avoidance will actually truly change the character. It's very incremental, very slow growth path. So the second way of transformation or inner alchemy is very fast, and this was said to be the promise of tantric yoga, is that you can achieve liberation in one lifetime following the path of tantric yoga instead of myriads and millions and millions of lifetimes. So again, like deity yoga is in there as well, as you're all familiar with that, Kriya yoga, and so forth. The next way that the Mahasiddhas practiced themselves exclusively was the way of direct realization, which is to see through, to clearly see through everything as illusory appearance or dreamlike appearance or temporary manifestation, and to relax into the deeper, uncreated aspect of self-nature, right? Which is the base, we call base with a capital B, base of everything, base of the universe, which shows up in each one of us as our own heart essence. Seeing directly into that, the Mahasiddhas were able to relax into that and become that directly, without having to go through avoidance or even transformation. Having said that, most of the Mahasiddhas did practice a lot of transformational yogas before they had this realization, and then taught mostly that. Now, human beings are born with capacities, different capacity levels. So at the lowest capacity level, we follow avoidance, because we simply don't have enough inner strength, inner connection to our energy, this subtle energy, to actually perform these alchemical transformations. It may come later, so we perform avoidance in the beginning. At the second level, medium level of capacity, we have tantric yoga and the transformational practices of Mahasiddha Yoga. And at the really supreme ultimate level, now it's not a little jump from the second level to the third. When you go from transformational to direct realization, it's a massive jump. And that kind of capacity, I don't know anybody born with that kind of capacity. I've never met anybody born with that kind of capacity. It's usually developed. And it's usually developed with some pretty strong practice over a number of decades. And then the person can begin to just instantly realize their nature. Shambhavapaya practice turns into Anupaya practice for the Shaivist in the group. Tantric accumulation practice or transformation generation practice turns into direct realization practice for the Dzogchenpas in the group. And for the Taoists, all of the Taoist internal alchemy of Neidan, Jindan, Qigong, meditation, etc., turns into Wu Wei, just the pure way of open, natural way, right? Where Tuo Wang, or sitting forgetting, is the only method, really. And it's not even seen as a method at that point. It's just kind of a way of life. Okay, this is an overview of Trikamahasiddha Yoga. And Trikamahasiddha Yoga that came to me from my Indian gurus and then from my Bumpo gurus was definitely, I realized over time, was definitely a syncretic tradition, that there is no such thing as a pure tradition out there. Everything developed from everything else and through their interactions, though individual groups like Dzogchen, individual groups like Vajrayana, individual groups like Shaktism or Shaivism, etc., they have their own flavors. Even within Shakta Shaiva tradition, you have 12 or more sects if you divide them into the major sects. And at least six of those sects, S-E-C-T-S, had influence upon Trikamahasiddha Yoga, as did Taoism of the transformational type and the Wu-Wei Taoism, as did Dzogchen, as did the preparatory tantras of the Bumpo Dzogchen. And this is actually, if you look back in history, this is quite the way it was. It was quite natural. But everybody likes to draw their little lines in the sand and be very, sectarian. Trikamahasiddha Yoga wants to go beyond that idea of sectarianism, but not in the sense of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, not in the sense of being New Age, where there is no history, there is no lineage, not in the sense of I'm entitled, and because I can just think these things that are very lofty and high because I've read some Shaivist text, all of a sudden I'm like an adept, or I'm a teacher even. No, we don't believe that. That's not possible. That's just not human. We have to train with human masters who are alive, not dead masters, human masters who are alive. Do the training, get checked, keep getting checked. Don't quit the process before you're sealed with, yes, now you can quit the process and just abide in your true nature and let that take you where it will. So we believe in lineage succession in that way of working with live masters, of getting checked and so forth. It's very important. And it's just part of human life. I don't think it's anything particular to Trikamahasiddha Yoga. I always use this example. If I wanted to learn how to change a tire, I certainly would get a human being to show me how, right? So the car doesn't fall on me, when it slips on the ice or whatever. So this is a quick overview of Trikamahasiddha Yoga. And I want to set that up because we're going into some questions from Sandra Zabiensky from Germany. Many of you know Sandra from the group already, or from Europe itself, because she's one of the major forces of yoga in Europe and going deep into the non-dual practices of Trikamahasiddha Yoga and Shaivism. And she has some good questions to lead off with, which we need a little background for, so I started with that background. So I hope you will forgive me for delaying the first question a little bit. Her first question, she has four, but the first one I want to deal with is she said, how does initiation take place in Trikamahasiddha Yoga, and what are the requirements? How does initiation take place, and what are the requirements? So for this, we need a little bit of background information. Maybe Joanna can hold it. It needs to be over here, so I don't have to look over my shoulder. Over here, right here. Sorry, I got notes. I want to make sure I get this right. No, you can put it down on the floor. Yeah, just put it back against the door, please. So let's start with this. Initiation in Trikamahasiddha Yoga. Trikamahasiddha Yoga, as I said, is traditional. So let's start with the traditional understanding of what that is. And that is that there are two types of initiation in traditional tantric yoga. Of course, there are many branches underneath these two types, but overall, or overarching, there are two types of initiation one can receive. The one type of initiation is an abhishekam. Abhishekam means empowerment. If you were to become empowered through a ritual by some type of lineage holder, acharya, guru, lama person, daosha person, what does that mean to be empowered? What's an empowerment? An empowerment or an abhishekam as initiation is that the student receives or gains permission to use what were before practices that would not give the same results if the student wasn't initiated, right? Or the student didn't have access to them because they were secret. Okay. So the student gains permission to use certain mantras, rituals, practices, texts, and so forth. The door wasn't closed properly. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt again. So this is what Abhishekam is. The very first characteristic of Abhishekam is that the student gains permission to use what they didn't get to use before, either because it was kept secret within the lineage, or because there's a special access to the Vidya Shakti, or the energy power, the wisdom power of the practice when you receive the Abhishekam. So what does that mean? It means because you're making contact with the Lama or the Guru or the Dausha, who does this practice already, who has woken it inside of their own being. Is that a word, woken? Inside of their own being, that when you get in touch with them and they're transmitting that technique to you, that wakes up inside of you much easier. It's like the seed is planted, now you just water it with your daily practice that you receive in the instructions around the practice in the Abhishekam. Okay, is that clear? Everybody kind of catching that? So that is the one type of Abhishekam a person can get. So another type of Abhishekam that a student can receive is to be introduced directly into their true nature. This can happen, or into a state. So there are two things you can be introduced directly into. You can directly be introduced into the result of a practice, right? That happens when you receive Abhishekam of the practice, but sometimes you're just a beginner, so you don't feel it. So sometimes a teacher will reinitiate you down the line into that practice again once you are now more experienced, and there's some place to meet that energy. Ah, now I understand that energy. Now I can hold it. You know, it's like if you go into a restaurant and taste super refined food, you might like the food, but you won't really be able to meet it at the place of a food critic or someone who's really studied food, a chef, or who's gone through tasting training. Then when you go to taste, everything comes out and you gain the full experience of it. It's quite the same way. So you can get transmission into a state of consciousness, a state of energy, right, state of experience of a practice, right, that's an Abhishekam. Or you can get an Abhishekam directly into your true nature, the ultimate experience of your ultimate nature, right? So that's on the side of Abhishekam. The other side of the coin of initiation, or Diksha, as it's called in Sanskrit, Diksha. Diksha means to break apart. So it's breaking apart the bonds that hold you. That's what Diksha is supposed to be doing, giving and breaking apart. So the other side is the Shishya Diksha, or the disciple Diksha. And most people, when they're writing in and saying, how do I get initiated with you? How do I get initiated with Trika Mahasiddha Yoga? What is the process? What are the preliminaries and so forth? Most people are asking about initiation into the system, to be a student of the system, or to be a student of me directly. So let's explain this from the traditional standpoint first. From a traditional standpoint, you would get initiation with a guru after proving your worthiness. And then they would give you a name, and they would give you possibly a mantra to practice, or directly into a practice of deity yoga or something like this. Possibly a spiritual symbol, which is used in meditation to keep you anchored into the earth so you don't go off into the fairies when you're meditating. This is quite traditional. But there are 3 levels of this kind of initiation, and we have to understand that. They're not all the same. Nowadays, many public gurus with very large followings, large fan base, large group, large kula, they do kind of like mass initiation and give a lot of names at once to a lot of people, and so everybody's part of a group. Basically, it's like a initiation to become part of a club. That's different than the old style, where each really great guru in the end only took about 12 students max during their whole life to become acharyas, and they would train them maximally, right? So we have to first understand that it's a whole different time now. And the modern movement of Hinduism in the past 700 years has truly damaged this system, the ancient system of Guru Yoga and how initiations work, especially in the past 150 years. It just accelerated, because that's another whole topic I want to go into another time, how we have so many problems today with groups around teachers, teachers themselves, understanding how to learn, what does it mean to be your own self-authority, all that kind of stuff, because the system got completely broken down when it got exported. It was already breaking down since the Muslim invasions, too. So if you want to look at how the systems of Dharma really worked a lot more, they're more intact in the Tibetan systems now because they were less messed with until Chinese occupation in 1955, right? I think it was 55. So let's look at this. What is disciple Diksha traditionally? Well, you would become a student of the teacher. Basically, that's what it's about. You're becoming a disciple or a student of the teacher. And the Guru has accepted you as a personal student, and actually, in the ancient terms, you would become part of their kula, or their family. So you would live with them, work with them day to day, and have sessions of practice together and study. So it was very formalized, usually very formalized, where you'd be doing the chores around the farm, you know, that kind of thing, like in the Rishis' days. Or even in the Mahasiddha times, you'd be living around the Mahasiddha, and whatever they did, if they were making arrows or they were some kind of medical person or whatever, you just immediately joined in, you became an arrow maker or a supporter of arrow making by getting the feathers or whatever it was. Or if it was a medical clinic, you became immediately supportive by boiling the bandages or whatever it was, you know, even if you didn't have medical training. But you just jumped in and you lived the lifestyle. And then they gave teachings, and then they gave practice sessions, and you would all live together. And that's called Gurukulam in Sanskrit. So that was the traditional way. Nowadays, like I said, we have a different situation because we have thousands of people can sometimes be a student of one guru. So it's impossible for that guru to actually work individually with those students. And therefore, it's absolutely impossible to keep the level high. And that's why we've seen a dilution of the Indian-based traditions come down over the past 600-700 years. Rapidly over the past 150 years, we see a tremendous dilution of the Guru-disciple tradition and the Indian traditions of spiritual development, right? I think there's a real problem with that today. I'm not saying anything you don't know already. Where the Tibetans are able to keep it quite high in a certain way. They didn't suffer the same problems that the Indians had to deal with, like mass contact with the commercial marketing culture, Western culture. So let's look at these levels of initiation to be a personal student of a teacher. First is Samaya Diksha. In Samaya Diksha, which I received in 1987, you're basically just becoming an outer student of the teachings. You're allowed to sit in the lessons in the class with the teacher. You're allowed to have a little access one-on-one, you know. But the teacher's not going to give you anything really deep, anything really profound, because they know that you're not stable yet in your practice and your commitment and so forth. So you're basically like a probie. You're on probation, right? That's outer level, that's Samaya Diksha. The second Diksha, second initiation, is called Vishesha Samaya. This is traditional now I'm going through. I received that one in 1991. That one, and you may get a name change. I got a name change at that point because I had gone through my probation. They saw that I was committed, and then they wanted to give me a name change to show that commitment. In fact, that's when I was taken out of monk training and put into tantric yoga training specifically and told, don't shave your head, don't shave your beard, all that kind of stuff. That's an inner student, where now you have inner access to the teachings, inner access to the teacher. And I did literally live with my teacher sometimes in the same room, cooking for him, massaging him, chiropractic adjusting him, getting tons of one-to-one teaching that I never would have had access to before. And then the next level of Diksha is Nirvana Diksha. Nirvana Diksha I got in 1997, and that is one where supposedly, and I'm going to say supposedly because you have to take this with a grain of salt, you're supposedly liberated forever into the enlightened realms through this kind of initiation. And what they're really saying is, because that really can't be done for you, that's impossible, right? Shamans heal sick people who don't want to heal themselves. That's what Western medical is, that's what shamanism is, basically. But in the level of spiritual work, when you're working on yourself, there is no sense that someone gets you enlightened. Someone can do it for you. That is 100% impossible. Like when you see workshops where people say, you're going to come to my workshop and I'm going to give you Shaktipata. You're paying $1,000 to go hang out with me in Bali and I'm going to give you Shaktipata, or wherever you have these trainings at. You see it all the time advertised. There's some systems that are very, very big on this, thinking that they're going to be able to, and I think the teachers sincerely believe that they're giving the grace of God to the student that the student can't get by themselves. And it's a quantity that's going to open up the student and give them realization that they couldn't do themselves. I find that A, disempowering, and B, disingenuous, because I don't think it happens. So let's just talk about this last level. Nirvana Diksha is where supposedly the Guru takes your central channel and your consciousness with it out of your body, and you're left in a paralyzed stupor of just enough prana to run your physical body. Mixes it with their central channel, their blue heart bindu, and merges that into the essence of Anuttara Shiva, who you can see over this shoulder here, the blue. And you become one with essence, right? And then you reconvene, come back together again through the 36 tattvas if you use that model, and you're here again. Boom. So, but you're free of everything forever, and you've gotten rid of all your karma except the karma to remain an individual as part of Shiva, and so forth, and then you go on enlightened being from there on. So that's the fairy tale story of it, fairy tale story, mythology. And it's important to gear your mind towards that's what's going to happen when I receive this initiation. Because what they're really saying is, look, you've got all the knowledge you need now. You've got all the empowerment you could handle now. Sure, they give you a little bump more of energy during Nirvana Diksha, but honestly, it's still up to the previous training you did. Am I really well prepared? Can I really hold this state? Now it's being confirmed on you. I think Nirvana Diksha is more of a confirmation that you now have everything you need to be free. You now have everything. You've shown me, the Guru is thinking, or Lama is thinking to the disciple, you've shown me that this is what you are made of, and that you can really do it, and that you have no longer any kind of things that are going to hold you back karmically. You're going to continue to tear them apart, relax them, let them go, and fly into the sunset, into becoming one with your essential nature. I think that's the true message of the Nirvana Diksha. And receiving that stamp from a guru that you've devoted to, or a lama or a dausha that you've devoted to for 10, 20, 30 years is quite powerful. And that itself psychologically sets up a very rich environment, and then you're in a ritual environment that's psycho-spiritually very powerful. That can catapult you into that final commitment. I think it can reset the brain, the amygdala, and reset the conditioning, and you can just relax and become your nature in a much deeper way than you ever could before. Certainly that was my experience of it. I don't have the opinion that the teacher actually gives you this experience that you take forever, as if you didn't have it before. Of course, we all have it in potential state within us, but it has to be realized. We can't just wave a wand. A guru waves a wand over us, then we have realization of our true nature. It just won't happen like that. Okay, so this is a traditional overview. Now, how does this work with Trikamahasita Yoga? Well, the goal or mission statement of Trikamahasita Yoga, and mine indeed personally, is to preserve, refine, and train yogins and acharyas. Preserve the tradition, refine it, meaning edit it. It's too big. We just need to edit it down. We don't need 5,000 techniques anymore. We don't need many, many things that aren't useful in a non-Indian, non-medieval Indian culture anymore. They're just not essential to Tantra. If they become essential in the future time, like 300-400 years from now, people will bring them back, because Tantra comes back all the time, because it's revealed over and over again each generation, each era. Okay, so Trikamahasita Yoga is here to preserve the most functional of all the teachings and techniques of all the Mahasiddha Yoga traditions, that is the Rainbow Light Body masters from Shaivism, Shaktism, Vajrayana, Bun, Dzogchen, and Taoism, Taojia. Okay. And the secondary way of doing that is through training yogins, people who want to get to the highest level. You don't have to train to be an acharya or a teacher, instructor, or lineage holder in Trikamahasita Yoga to gain access to the highest teachings. Many times in systems today, people will only give the highest teachings and the highest abhishekams, the highest practices, the most secret ones, to the ones that they know are going to take over the lineage. There's a practical side to that, and I understand that fully, but it's not fair, I think, to a lot of good-hearted Westerners I've seen, and modern Asians who've really been trying hard, working hard, and developing very high levels of attainment and stability. It's not fair to keep it within the boys' club, as I like to call it, right? So, and many other teachers in the past 50 years have been speaking about this and saying how it's not right. So, in that case, I want to be able to have accessibility for any student who really has the potentiality to go to the highest level of realization. I wouldn't hold anything back. That would be unethical, I believe, as I believe some teachers I've trained with held stuff back. I think it's just unethical. Luckily, I was able to go around them and use my foxy wiles to find other ways to other teachers who wouldn't hold it back, but you don't have to do that. I think you waste a lot of time, energy, and money doing that you could be practicing and relaxing, because it's very stressful to do what I had to do to put this together. But I am looking to train acharyas, and that's very important now that I'm 57, 58 in a few weeks, because, you know, we don't know how long we're going to be here, and I really don't want this jet I was given to be blown away in the wind. It's a beautiful thing, and I want to preserve it and give it to some so I can carry it on, because it will take people to liberation. That's what we want. What I want to make really clear right now in regards to Sandra's question about initiation in regard to the school and myself, or the system that we teach, it's not really a school. Right now I want to make some things really clear about this that help to clarify what you can expect if you want to get initiated in this school, et cetera, et cetera. Here's how it works. What I'm not into is the guru mystic show, the mystical guru show. I hated it when I was training, and I'm not into it now. I trained with siddhas. I did. I trained with people who could make fire, who could levitate, who could, you know, do all this mystical stuff, who could leave their body on the ground dead, occupy a dead body in the burning ground a little far away from them, have it sit up, give a lecture, put it back down again, jump back in that body. All the masters I've really trained heavily with had a lot of siddhi, you know, magic powers, you could call them. But this is not what I'm interested in at all, to be honest. In fact, when they were building up a bit too much for me in 1994, 95, I just prayed to my gurus to get rid of them, because they're just such a stupid distraction. They have nothing to do with spiritual work in a certain sense at all. And if you're on Trikamasiddha Yoga, you would have seen that I put a really nice bunch of excerpts from a Lama up on the Trikamasiddha Yoga Facebook group, the public group, the other day. And there's a beautiful line in there where he says, I'm not interested in, you know, he says, siddhi, you know, siddhi, magical development, and something else. He says some people can put their footprint into a rock, and he named some other kind of siddhi. He said, but that's not very, very interesting, because the real path is about, can you overcome your obscuring emotion? Can you overcome the discursive mind to really relax into your true nature and be liberated? That's what's really important. And I think that's very important for me to state right now, that that is what I am interested in sharing. I'm not interested in magic powers. I'm not interested in any of this kind of dog and pony show that goes with the guru, the fanfare, the longing, loving disciples that look at you longingly and rub your feet all day. And it's just totally something I'm not interested in. So don't think that you need to get initiated or to act like a sycophant to actually get trained. You don't need that. You do need sincerity. You do need an open heart. You do need an open mind. You do need not to be treacherous. You do need to be a good person, because this is good person training. It's good human being training. That's what this is all about. What are the prerequisites for initiation, like Sandra asked? What are the prerequisites? Well, there are many for whatever level you want to do, right? There are the preliminaries and the foundations. Now, that's 2 courses that are filmed and are going up online as soon as we fix something in the back end. We're a little bit late for release of the website, but apparently this is normal in the world of IT, and we're getting those worked out by experts now. And then when it goes up, the preliminary course will be there. You take that first. You like it, you want to keep going deeper, you take the foundation course. You like that, you want to go deeper, then for free there'll be Kundalini Hatha Yoga Level 1 available as well on there. And then you can keep training online. I'll have a number of courses online, or you can then come and show up in person. Some of the courses you show up for in person need prerequisites, and they'll be listed there very clearly. That's no problem. But you're not going to arrive here and get initiation. You're not going to arrive here and get a spiritual name, a Sanskrit spiritual name, and a mantra, and all of a sudden be, you know, an inner student. That just doesn't happen. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sure you understand that. Everybody has to prove their merit, and you have to also take time to feel yourself out in this system. Do I want to be part of this system? Maybe I'm just checking it out for myself. That's why that checkout period should be there. So you do all those preliminary kind of just, and then you find the way of practice that is most interesting to you, and make up that way. You show that way. let's see what I put next there. Yeah, so we're not going to make an ashram. We're not going to make a center, a big rural center again. We're not going to make a big center. We're not going to, you know, the one we had in Thailand could sleep over 100 people. We're not going to do it anymore like that. It's the biggest Machanda temple in the world, actually, the biggest yoga temple in the world, dedicated temple with a live deity and so forth inside, live Murti. And then there's a Bun temple there as well that's very beautiful and dedicated. And I thought, okay, we're not going to do that again because it doesn't ensure the quality. It doesn't achieve the goals of the mission that I put up before, like preserving, refining, training yogins and acharyas at the highest level. It doesn't. It gets too bogged down in personality conflicts and administrative details, administrative work. It takes a lot of work to run a place like that. So students that go to train get very little time to train and end up working all the time. So this is not what we want to have. We're not going to do that ever again. In fact, we have it really worked out. The internet is here. You can have me live streamed, or any of the other teachers of Trikamasiddha Yoga who are going to be on our site, live stream to you, teaching you. And when you're ready for one-on-one live instruction, then you can show up for the trainings in person. And those trainings in person are happening around the world right now, but within 3 or 4 years, they're going to be happening only at my home. And rarely I'll come out because I really want to go deeper into my own practice, and I can't do that when I'm traveling. It breaks up the flow too much. A lot of the practices I want to do take 6 months to 10 years, and some of those practices take 3 to 5 sessions per day. Some of them take 10 hours straight in one session a day. And there's just no way I can do that when I'm traveling around. And I want to also finish the books. The books are always delayed by traveling. And now a virus, and there's always something. So I got to just stay home, stay put in the jungle and write and practice and get it done. And you can all come here because it's quite a beautiful little place. You can see behind me. We set it up for you. And soon we'll have our own, if all goes well, fingers crossed, we'll have our own yogashala. Some of the students have donated money or are in the process of donating money so we can buy the land that adjoins this piece of land and put up a yogashala there. Walk out of the meditation center here right up into the yogashala, walk back, perfect. So you can come down here. We're not building a school. Now here's the other part. I'm not building a school. I'm not building a kula or a tantric family because I'm not doing mass initiations. It's not the purpose. It's not the goal. It's not what I want. It won't serve you. If you really want to get liberated, that won't serve you to be part of a massive kula. Trust me. I was part of a massive kula 2 times. Each time I had to fight to get in close to my guru.